In all of our examples, we're going to be asked to solve for all the missing parts. And so when I look at the problem, I want to decide, is it an ambiguous case or is it a regular law of sines? In this particular problem, I know that it's a regular law of sines because I have angle 1, angle 2. And when I have angle, angle, side, that automatically means it's a regular law of sines problem. So the next thing I want to look for is, do I have a pair of information? And I don't yet. So the first thing I need to do is find my missing angle. How do I do that? Well, we remember that our three angles always add up to 180 degrees. So I'll do 180 degrees minus 57 minus 13 to find angle A. So we should get that angle A is 110 degrees. Well, now I have my pair of information. I now have an angle and a side of the same variable. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my equation. Now, no matter if you're solving for side B or side C first, you should have started off with sine 110 over 14. Now, it doesn't matter which variable you solve for first. I've set up both equations here. Just remember that 57 degrees has to go with angle B because, with side B because 57 degrees is angle B. And 13 degrees has to go with side C. So that needs to be paired up together also. Please hit pause and solve for both sides B and C. Okay, so here I have my equations and I've started to divide by sine 110. So for the one on the left, I'll type in 14 sine 57 and then divide that by sine 110 and I'll get 12.5 when I round. And for the one on the right, where I had c sine 110 equals 14 sine 13, I'll divide both sides by sine 110 and I will end up with c equals 3.4. Now, I have solved for one whole entire triangle because I have solved for 6 pieces, 3 angles, A, B, and C, and 3 sides, A, B, and C. Now, when I look at this problem, I want to remind myself I decided early on that this was not an ambiguous case problem because I was given the 2 angles. Therefore, I'm finished with my problem and I've solved for all the missing parts. So now with my next problem, the first thing I want to do is figure out, is this an ambiguous case problem? Well, this time I was given one angle and 2 sides. And the side-side angle problem will be an ambiguous case. I could have 0 triangles, 1 triangle, or 2 triangles. I'm not sure yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my pair of information, which are my angle A and side A, and I'm going to set up my equation. Now I had to start with angle B solving for it because I don't know anything about C, which means I can't start with that. Once again, I'll cross multiply. I'm going to type this into my calculator. And remember, when we're solving for an angle, we have to do the inverse. So it's second sign, second answer, which is above the negative key, and I get an error message. That means that there is no triangle possible. And remember, the largest sine value we've ever used has been 1. So since this is bigger than 1, that's what makes there no triangle. So if you remember that when you get sine equal to something, and it's bigger than 1, you can automatically say there's no triangle, or you can go ahead and type it into your calculator. Okay, here we have an example of another ambiguous case problem. Once again, I know it's ambiguous because I've been given 2 sides and an angle. And a side-side angle problem will always be ambiguous. 0, 1, or 2 triangles. Please hit pause and take the time to set up your equation and solve for your first piece of missing information that you can find. Okay, so far I've just typed or written my equation. Sine of A over A equals sine of B over B, remembering that the angle goes with sine and the side goes underneath. I cross multiplied and got 54 sine angle B equals 62 sine 40, and I divided both sides by 54 in order to get sine alone. When I type that into my calculator, I get that the sine of B is equal to 0.74, and I'm just rounding this because I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator and do second sine, second answer, because I'm solving for an angle and I don't want to round. And I get 47.6 degrees. Now the next thing I want to remember is the easiest thing to solve for will always be my third angle. So I'm going to add up 40 and 47.6 and subtract that from 180 in order to get angle C, because my three angles always add up to 180. And I get that angle C is equal to 92.4 degrees. Then the next thing I need to do is solve for side C. When I set this up, I'm going to use the same information that I started with for the last problem, sine of 40 over 54, but I'm going to set that equal to sine of 92.4 over side C. I always use my given information. Okay, so once I cross multiply, I get C sine 40 equals 54 sine 92.4. I divide by the sine of 40, and I get that C is equal to 84. Sorry, if I'm rounding correctly, I should be writing 83.9. Now, I have solved for one triangle. I've solved for angle B, angle C, and side C. But in the beginning, I said that this was an ambiguous case in either 0, 1, or 2 triangles. So I know there's at least one triangle. What I don't know yet is if there's going to be 2. Remember, the first thing that you do to find out if there is a second triangle is you do 180 minus the first angle you solve for, which in this case was angle B. So I'm going to do 180 minus 47.6. And for this, I get my angle B might also be equal to 132.4 degrees. I have to use the first one I solved. If I tried to use the 92.4, this would not work. Now, I'll do the same thing that I did last time, and I'm going to try to solve for my missing angle first, which again is angle C. So I'm going to add up angle A, which was 40, and that was given originally, and angle B, which I just solved for, 132.4. And when I add up angle A plus angle B, that's going to be 40 plus 132.4. That's going to give me 172.4 degrees. Since that's smaller than 180 degrees, that means that there is a second possible triangle. So I'm going to do 180 minus that 72.4, and I'm going to get 7.6 degrees. So now I've solved for a second angle B and a second angle C. The only thing I haven't solved for is a second side C. Just like I did for my first pair of information, I'm going to go back to my original given information, and I'm going to use a sine of 40, which was angle A, over 54, which was side A, is equal to sine of 7.6, which is angle C, over side C. Then I'm going to cross multiply. So when I go ahead and type this in, I get that side C is equal to 11.1. So here are my second pairs of information, and the only thing I want to do is go back and label these a little more clearly. So because I found these first, I'm going to label this angle B1, angle C1, and side C1. And then with the pair that I labeled second, or found second, I'm going to label that angle B2, angle C2, and side C2. I'm naming them separately so that I know that the 3 that I found second go together, and the 3 that I found first go together.